The bus driver decided to ask Rosa Parks to give him that seat. He more like demanded. He wasn't asking like, Miss Parks, could you give me that seat, please? No. Hey, now, girl, I need that seat. And she said no. And then he asked her again and said, if you don't, I'm going to call the police now. They're going to come down here and get your butt. And she said, well, go on, call them, because I ain't going nowhere. Well, here's the thing. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and it is day 5 of Black History Month. It's your girl, Kyra here, interpretive African-American history and culture, motivational and spiritual speaker. And today I'm going to be telling you all about what happened in a little town known as Montgomery, Alabama. In the city of Montgomery, Alabama, we already know what it is about. We're about to talk about the Montgomery bus boycott. So y'all stay tuned and check out this Black History Report for day 5. For a lot of people trying to understand what it was like for public transportation as a black person trying to ride the buses, them seats already wasn't the best and most comfortable. And so when black people had to ride the buses back in that time, what you had to do was you get on the bus, pay your 10 cents on the front of the bus, then you had to get back off of the bus, come around, board in the back, and once you board at the back of the bus, you know where you had to sit your behind? That's right, honey, in the back of the bus. Of course, the segregation laws have been put into place, and we all know why this came about. In Plessy versus Ferguson, the case in 1896 that decided that all public accommodations were supposed to be separate but equal. But clearly, if you were to look on one of those buses, trust me, honey, it was definitely separated, but anything but equal. But what happened on March 12th of 1955 really shocked a lot of people. 15-year-old Claudette Colvin, who had taken her place on the bus, and she was sitting in the section that they considered to be the white-only section. And Miss Claudette Colvin, honey, says she was not to be moved. She became the first young black female, the first black person there in Montgomery to refuse to give up their seat on the buses. Now y'all know who it really was, and it wasn't Miss Rosa Parks. And then, not to mention after that, 18-year-old Mary Louise Smith became the next to do so. Finally, on December 1st, 1955, Ms. Rosa Parks had taken her place on the bus. And what she did, as she always had done, got up there in the front, paid her 10 cents, came around the back, and took her seat in the section that was considered to be kind of a free reign. Now, here's the thing. When Ms. Rosa Parks had taken her place, she could sit there, but as long as there were no whites in the area on the bus. But when it came time for them to stop at the next stop, seeing as how all the other seats had been taken, when this white passenger got on the bus driver decided to ask Rosa Parks to give him that seat. He more like demanded. He wasn't asking like, Miss Parks, could you give me that seat, please? No. Hey, now, girl, I need that seat. And she said no. And then he asked her again and said, if you don't, I'm going to call the police now. They're going to come down here and get your butt. And she said, well, go on, call them, because I ain't going nowhere. Well, here's the thing. A lot of people speculate as to why Ms. Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat that day on the bus. I'm going to tell you why right now. Because she had a 14-year-old boy named Emmett Lewis Till on her mind that day. 14-year-old Emmett Lewis Till was a young black boy who unfortunately had been brutally murdered and killed in Money, Mississippi in that same year on August 28th for wolf whistling at a white woman in Money, Mississippi. After his death, and he had been brutally mutilated, and his body was thrown in the Tallahatchie River. His body being discovered was so unrecognizable, his own mother didn't even know it was him. Well, Ms. Rosa Parks said that she had Emmett Till on her mind that day, and she just could not be moved from her seat. This is where the birth of the Montgomery bus boycott began. See, a young man by the name of E.D. Nixon, and I say young because, even though he was a little older, he was still young in spirit, honey. He still had that fire, okay? You didn't play no games with E.D. Nixon. E.D. Nixon decided that we had to push forward with this, and Ms. Rosa Parks was a great candidate in trying to steer this movement ahead. Well, see, here's the thing. They decided to come together, and what they wanted to do was organize a boycott. Now, here's where the black women come into play. Ms. Joanne Robinson What she decided to do was print off hundreds and dozens of flyers and send them out to all the black citizens of Montgomery. And she said on December 5th of 1955, we are not going to ride the buses. Now, this was so successful because over 90% of the black people on that one day, honey, refused to ride the buses. And this boycott was so successful, they decided to prolong it. But here's the thing. If we're going to continue this boycott, we need somebody that's going to help lead the movement here. We need someone that is not really well known here in Montgomery, that the police are not going to easily recognize and try to throw a bunch of different crazy charges at them. We need someone here to pick up the torch. We need someone that was one hell of a speaker. And they could not look no further than the doorstep of a young 26-year-old Baptist Southern preacher of Ebenezer Baptist Church, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He makes his birth in the civil rights movement at this time. He was hesitant to become the leader of this movement. He was 26 years old, just got married to Coretta Scott King, and they just had a little baby. So you can imagine the pressure that was on for this young man. Dr. King had been arrested 89 times throughout this movement in Montgomery. Because see, after December 5th, they did not ride the buses. And they walked and they walked and they walked for 381 days. I think I need to say that again for y'all. 381 days. These black men, women, and children walked. Some of them were walking 7 and 8 miles, honey, just to go to work. Y'all, you can't even get some kids today to walk to the mailbox. But these black people walked for 7 and 8 miles every day to desegregate those buses in Montgomery, Alabama. Now, here's the thing. On day 382, they called off the boycott because they had successfully desegregated the buses. Why is that? Well, here's the thing. 80% of the ridership of the buses were black women. A lot of them were acting as domestics in white homes and needing to travel from here to there to go across town or go across the city to get to where they need to go. So when the black women stayed off the buses, sisters, honey, guess what? When the black women stayed off the buses, we bankrupted their butts and we forced them into submission and to desegregating those buses. And guess what happened? They desegregated the buses. On day 382, the boycott was called off because we finally had won this fight. Think about the resilience it took, the strength that it had to take, and how fit probably a lot of them were after all that dang walking. But Dr. King, unfortunately, had a lot of things that happened to him throughout this whole movement. His house had been bombed with his young wife and baby girl sleeping inside. Not to mention the fact that he had been arrested 89 times and there had been numerous threats on his life. But Dr. King persevered on. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is what became known as the birth of the civil rights movement. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you all to understand something here. Had it not been for the unfortunate death of 14-year-old Emmett Lewis Till, Ms. Rosa Parks probably never would have said that cold day in December. I had Emmett Till on my mind, and I could not be moved from my seat, thus giving us the birth of the civil rights movement. Ladies and gentlemen, the Montgomery bus boycott. A lot of people have heard of it, but I hope you all understand a little bit more today on what just entailed in this movement. I hope you all have enjoyed day 5. And again, you don't have to listen to me, but I'm so happy and glad that you did. And y'all please make sure to stay tuned tomorrow for day 6. And y'all please remember what your girl always says. Remember to always to stay up and to also stay blessed. Y'all be easy and have a wonderful day.